In this time, I'm going to talk about the Philippine Japanese literature. So these are the literary pieces and happenings during the Japanese period here in our country when they colonized us right after the Americans during 1941 to 1945. So let's have historical background. Between 1941 to 1945, Philippine literature was interrupted in its development when the Philippines was again conquered by another foreign country, which is Japan. Philippine literature in English came to a halt, except for the Tribune and the Philippines Review. Almost all the newspapers in English were stopped by the Japanese. This had an advantageous effect on Filipino literature, which experienced renewed attention because writers in English turned to writing in Filipino. Juan Laya, who used to write in English, turned to Filipino because of the strict prohibitions of the Japanese regarding any writing in English. So during the time, there was a big changes in Philippine literature, whereas the major that can probably be used is only Filipino and Japanese language only. So they credited the use of English language in order for them to maximize the whole country, particularly in needs language. The weekly Liwayway or the newspaper with the name Liwayway was placed under strict surveillance until it was managed by the Japanese name Ishiwara. So Liwayway is one of the famous during that time and most of these works written in English. That is why it was placed under strict surveillance, and I think this is a way of other Filipino to do their way lack of propaganda. In other words, Filipino literature was given a break during this period. Many wrote plays, poems, short stories, and etc. Topics and themes were often about life in the provinces. So let's have Filipino poetry during this period. The common theme of most poems during the Japanese occupation was nationalism, country love, and life in the various faith, religion, and the arts. So, those are the subjects that are probably be chosen in order for you to make your own poetry during the period. There are three types of poems emerged during this period. They were first haiku, a poem of free verse that the Japanese like. It was made up of 17 syllables divided into three lines. The first line should have 5 syllables, and the second should have 7 syllables, and the third should have 5. The haiku is an allegorical in meaning, is short, and covers a wide scope and meaning. Second, we have tanaga. Like the haiku is short but it had measure and rhyme. Each line should have 17 syllables and it's also allegorical in meaning. For example, nang walang biring ginto, doon nagpapalalo, nang magkaginto-ginto, doon nang sungmuko. I don't know what particular dialect this one, but I believe it was written here in the Philippines. The third one, karaniwang anyo or unusual form, like those mentioned earlier in the beginning chapters of this book. Let's proceed to Filipino drama during the Japanese period. The drama experience allowed during the Japanese period because movie houses showing American films were closed. So during the time, even in the aspect of drama has also a major changes when the Japanese prohibited these movie houses to film or to show American movies. The big movie houses were just made to show stage shows. Many of the plays were reproductions of English plays to Tagalog. The translators were Francisco Soc Rodrigo, Alberto Consejo, and Narciso Pimentel. They also founded the organization of Filipino players named Dramatic Philippines. A few of playwriters were first one is Jose Maria Hernandez wrote Panday Pera. Next, Francisco Soc Rodrigo wrote Sa Pula sa Puti. Next, Clodoaldo del Mondo wrote Bulaga and Expression in the Game Hide and Seek. The last one, Julian Cruz Balmaceda wrote Sino ba kayo? Dahil sa anak and Higante ng Patay. The best writings in 1945 were selected by a group of judges composed of Francisco Icasiano, Jose Esperanza Cruz, Antonio Rosales, Clodoaldo del Mundo, and Teodoro Santos. As a result of this selection, the following got the first three prizes. First prize, Narciso Reyes with his Lupang Tinubuan. Second prize, Liwaywal Arcios, Uhaw ang Tigang na Lupa. Third prize, in VM Gonzalez, Lungsod Ngayon at Dagat-Dagatan. Let's proceed to the Philippine literature in English in 1941 to 1945. Because of the strict prohibitions imposed of the Japanese in the writing and publishing of works in English, Philippine literature in English experienced a dark period. The few who dared to write did so for their bread and butter or for propaganda. Writings that came out during this period were journalistic in nature. Writers felt suppressed, but slowly the spirit of nationalism started to seep into their consciousness. While some continued to write, the majority waited for a better climate to publish their works. So during the time, English is really prohibited to be used as a medium to write the Philippine or to write a literary piece, whether for the Philippines or whether for their own country. English should not be used as a medium on writing your own literary piece, and even in school. The American started the public school here in the Philippines. Even school, they prohibited the use of English as a medium of instruction. That's all. Thank you.